Welcome to For the Love of Licking County, a podcast where we bring you everything on leadership, entrepreneurship, and community impact. Presented by the Licking County Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, Jamie Wright of Wright Davo Insurance. We're coming to you from right here in Newark, Ohio.
Whether you're a job seeker or a business with staffing needs, Ohio Means Jobs Licking County is here for you. Our center is fully equipped and expertly staffed to help you with your employment and workforce needs. Stop in and see us at 998 East Main Street in Newark or call us at 740-670-8700.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Wing Max Smith & Bang DDS, where they are always accepting new patients. Voted Best Dentist in Licking County 2020. Hello and welcome back to For the Love of Licking County. I am Jamie Wright of Wright Davo Insurance, and I just want to say welcome back. We hope that you had a fantastic Christmas, a wonderful New Year. It is January 10th, and I have started my New Year 10 times already this year.
Haven't we all?
I know. A lot of ambitious goals and thoughts and themes for this year. So if you need to start over too, we give you permission. Today we have two very special guests. I'm sure you've seen these shining faces before, but just in case, if not, we do have with us Mr. Nathan Arnold. Now, he is the president of the Young Leaders of Licking County, but he's also the marketing director at Inglefield Oil.
Yes.
And then we also have the beautiful and talented Brittany Misner. Now, she is a board member for the Young Leaders of Licking County, but she's also the vice president of the Licking County Chamber of Commerce. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was a great intro.
Yeah.
We need that every time.
You're welcome. I know. Maybe I should just go along with people and introduce them. Now, Brittany, you've been on the show before, so welcome back. Nathan, this is your first time.
Yes.
We're just here to have a good time.
Good.
Let's do it. Our topic today is very, very interesting. We did want to bring Young Leaders of Licking County on to talk about millennial myths. So we're going to be busting some millennial myths today. So this should be a real fun one.
Good.
And before we get started, go ahead and give everybody who doesn't know yet an introduction to the Young Leaders of Licking County. Let's talk about your mission, and I really want to hear about the programs that you guys offer.
Absolutely.
Sure. So Young Leaders of Licking County is a young professional organization here in the county, and we're really fostering that next generation of leadership. So we're the future CEOs, the bosses,
Right.
the people that are going to be change makers within the county. So we just celebrated our 5th birthday,
Woohoo!
which is crazy. Brittany and I have been doing this for 6, maybe 7.
Yeah.
We planned it for a couple of years before we launched. And it's really been an honor to have this here in the county.
I love it. I love it. And I love how you describe it too. Talk to me about the programs. So, I mean, I have my own story that I'll be telling you, of course. But let's talk about the programs that you guys offer in case somebody's interested.
So our goal is to provide experiences. So we know
Yeah.
that there's lots of opportunities to get involved in Licking County. And so it was important when we were creating this group that we provided something different, a different experience, different opportunities for young professionals. And so this is an affiliate of the Chamber, and our goal at the Chamber is to make sure we're building leaders. And so it was a great connection. And it just really allowed us to continue our mission at the Chamber as well. But by engaging younger professionals that are moving up in the world, they're leading, they're doing great things, and we want to be a part of that. And so the programming is a little different than all the different groups, a little different than the Chamber's programming, but again, it's based on experiences. So Pancakes with the President,
Yep.
it's probably our most popular event. And so that's an opportunity to learn from more seasoned leaders traditionally in the community that have experiences they can share with us. Yes, we get to hear about their companies and the things they're doing within their businesses, but it's also to hear more about their experiences, their advice that they have for us, their leadership philosophies. And our members really enjoy the opportunity to be able to learn from them.
Yeah.
And
That's
then-
one of my favorites too. And you get pancakes.
Absolutely. I mean, we've done it at Velvet Ice Cream where you have ice cream and pancakes. We've done it where there's donuts and pancakes. It's lots of different experiences. You don't know what you're going to walk
Right.
into.
Yeah. And where can you ask personal questions to
Right.
these leaders too? You might see them in the newspaper, you see them speaking at other organizations,
Right.
but you don't get to be in a room and ask the personal questions and hearing their stories about when did they fail? or when did they think that they couldn't do what they're doing today, and really getting that information to help us grow as leaders too. And a lot of those have been a part of our mentorship program as well. So they're getting that personal attention with a mentee, a member of our organization, where they get to meet 6 times in a year. So over a 6-month period, they're meeting at least once per month and getting that personalized coaching. That's something you typically would have to pay for if you wanted a consultant or other business coaching, but you can actually get someone here in the county that knows our community, kind of what's going on here, the heartbeat, and be able to give you that great information.
And I just want to just beep into that too, with my experience with that. It has been fantastic to act, and that's one of the questions that comes up every time, is give us an example of when you failed and how you recovered from that. I think that that's one of the most thought-provoking discussions that a CEO or somebody can have with a group of young professionals and talking about their experiences. So it's a very intimate experience that you can have. So anyway, go on.
And I think that's going to be this will be the fourth
time,
for the program, or fourth time is better to explain that. And that'll be coming out in February, the next round of applicants for that. We just celebrated our holiday party, an award celebration that took place in December. We had close to 100 people present for that. That's always our most well-attended event. And it's a really great opportunity because we get to recognize the young leaders that are going above and beyond. So we recognized a few of them at that holiday party. We also get to acknowledge the fact that we give out grants every year. So our committee works on a grant process where they can review applications from nonprofits in the community, really try to see what makes the most sense. And we fundraise throughout the year at events like the Duck Derby. What else do we fundraise in? Oh, the Putt Putt Challenge. How could I forget the Putt Putt Challenge? It's one of our favorites. And so we take the money that we earn at those events and put them in the giving fund. So every year we can give out money to nonprofits in the community. This year it was $4,250. And so each year our goal is to increase that a little bit more. And eventually we're really hoping to see us be able to give out about $10,000 to the community every year. So that's a big goal, but I know we'll get there.
Yeah, we will.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. And I mean, not to mention, like, these events are super fun.
Very fun.
So
I have to mention one more. Speed networking is always really popular, and that's coming up. So we are bringing that back. We couldn't do it last year, of course, but February 15th, we are doing speed networking again. And feedback I received on that event was really interesting to me the first time we did it, because I had someone that said, I'm really introverted, and that was the best way for me to network. And I was surprised to hear that, because of course I don't understand being an introvert. Not a bone in my body says that. But so it was really great feedback to make sure that we are providing everybody with different personalities and interests opportunities to connect with each other. And so speed networking will be coming up again in February. That's always a fan favorite.
Well, good. So when I remember, this was in 2018. I remember when I went to it was a Young Leaders of Licking County 101. And I walk into the chamber, and I think I'd already attended Chamber 101. So, and the whole board was there, and you guys were talking about everything that the Young Leaders has to offer and everything that you can get involved with. And I remember somebody saying, one of the greatest things that has come of this is the friendships that I have made being involved. And if you're new to an area, that can be super intimidating. Or if you're new to a career and you're trying to figure out what networking is and how to do networking, this is a fantastic place to start. It's very true. The friendships that I have made just showing up.
Yep.
And I know that when you are a young professional getting started in a career or changing careers or moving to a new location, it can be really intense to try to figure that out. And this is a very fantastic way to get involved. The only thing that I'll say is you just have to show up.
You do.
Absolutely.
You just have to keep showing up. And then you get to meet people, and you find people that, you have the same interest in, and then you network on social with them, and then you figure out. And then, I mean, I'll tell you, I've had a lot of fun at the holiday party. Like, that was just, fun, everybody getting together. Yeah.
It was the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
Really, that we've all been together because of COVID. So it was nice just to be in the same room and celebrate.
And just to share the experience for sure. So I would encourage anybody out there that is thinking about joining. I mean, membership is it
$30.
$30.
$30 a
Application
year.
can be found on our website,
Yep.
youngleadersoflc.com.
Yep.
We try to make sure that it's really affordable. Events are little to no cost
Right.
because, again, we want to make sure it's accessible for all of our young professionals, regardless of what stage they're at in their career.
Yep. And so, I mean, again, you're going to create a lot of friendships. I mean, we've become friendships
We have, yeah.
from those experiences too. So I wouldn't change it for the world.
No. My wife and I, we were transplants to this community.
Yeah.
We've been here now for 10 years or close to 10 years. But the chamber was really how I got to meet
Right.
people. You know, when I was 21, 22 in this new community, didn't know anybody. It was interesting to see, you know, the people that go to high school together or grew up here, they kind of stick together. And I feel like Licking County is a little bit different because they're welcoming to people.
Yeah.
And I got to meet so many people through the chamber, got to be on boards and committees, and really got to see what this community is so special. Because everyone talked about Licking County as a special community
Yeah.
that is unlike anywhere else you're going to be. And thankfully through the chamber, and then, you know, Brittany and I became friends. Jamie, you and I became friends. And I definitely would echo that.
Yeah.
Just come to an event. We promise you will enjoy it.
Just keep
Absolutely.
showing up.
Yes.
And you mentioned boards and volunteering and all of those things. And that has been something I don't think we anticipated young leaders to be when we started it. But it has been such a great connection for our young professionals to nonprofits and different causes in the community. We have been able to place several people on different boards, different committees around the community. And now we get emails all the time. Hey, can you send out this opportunity to your members? And so
and they're getting a ton of responses,
wonderful responses.
which is huge.
Well, you also provide volunteer opportunities. Just this morning, there was
Yep.
a volunteer opportunity that came through the email too. So if you're looking to get involved, I mean,
This
no
is a great way
excuse.
to
Yes.
start.
This
Exactly.
is a great way to start. And just to echo, and I've said this before on many shows before, but you know, Licking County being special and very true to the young professionals in this area. Everybody wants everybody to succeed. So if there's something that you need, all you have to do is ask, and somebody will find a resource for you. If it's not them, it's somebody else, and they know somebody that knows somebody. So
Absolutely.
again, $30 on the website.
Easy
Come
peasy.
come have some fun.
Yes.
Now I am aging out this year, so I won't be there, but they will. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I guess before we dig into the millennial myth busting, let's identify the millennial generation. So the quick Google search. So this is obviously pretty subjective to whatever Wikipedia has told me. So millennials are also called Gen Y, which my dates are 1981 to 1996-7.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay, so now before that you have Gen X, which is the 65 to 80,
Yes.
and then you're going to have Gen Z, which is 97 to 2012-ish, and then the Alpha generation is after that. So we'll talk about them a different time. I don't know anything. But like I'm in between the X and the Y. I'm like the armpit of the generation. That's like that small pocket of people. So it's interesting to me to, you know, see both.
I would never
Yeah.
refer to you as an armpit.
The armpit.
Anything,
No.
I know.
Jamie.
What they call you might be worse.
Right.
You're a geriatric
A
millennial. That might be worse. I don't
I
know.
almost feel like that's a little bit better.
Then armpit.
I do.
Okay. I'll take your word. I don't know. Let me think about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Process that.
I'll let you know. But with that being said, so we know that there can be a negative connotation towards millennials and many stereotypes. But as we're seeing the workforce shift and what's important to the workforce, we are seeing this generation thrive.
Absolutely.
We're seeing how we're creating a new way of leadership and redefining the definition of success. So I just want to, I'm going to get my handy dandy phone out. I looked up something about the characteristics of millennials, and I was interested because I'm like, yep. The characteristics of the millennial generation values meaningful motivation, challenges the hierarchy of status quo, places importance on relationships with superiors, intuitive knowledge of technology, open and adaptive to change, that's huge, places importance on tasks rather than time, and has a passion for learning. I mean,
That all sounds good. Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
right?
And those are positive things.
I know. So let's bust some myths.
Yeah.
It can
Okay.
be translated a little different, I think. Some of those you mentioned, I can see where people might see them. We see them as a positive.
Right.
Some people
Yep.
might see them as a negative, but it all
Yeah.
depends. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we were starting Young Leaders, Brittany and I and the others that started with us, Luke and Matt, like we had a lot of pushback from some people in the community. We had lots of people who were supportive. We had a few people that were like giving us some of the stuff we're going to talk about today of how, millennials are lazy or they're not in the workforce. And
Right.
a lot of leaders had no idea what is a millennial.
Right.
So we started this presentation and we felt like it was our mission as a young leader and as a young person to debunk all these myths. So we went to Rotary, we went to other organizations to present the millennial myth. Because at the time, this was a couple years ago, when you would go to Google and you typed in millennials are and just put a space, you know how it shows all the search results.
It's horrid.
It was
It's
awful.
absolutely awful.
It's like, is killing people,
What?
is lazy. It just had all these
Killing
negative
the
things.
workforce. They don't know how to do this. I mean, all the basic things in life. It
was
was
bad.
actually really depressing
It
to
was.
see that.
And that was our first slide. And people were like, oh,
Yeah.
this isn't good.
This was like 7 years ago? 5
No,
years
this
ago?
was 3-4 years
Yeah.
ago.
Oh, wow. So it's changed. I mean, there's, like I
yeah.
said, there's a shift quite a bit.
I went to
So-
Google today. I typed in the same
Yeah.
thing. None of those are there, thankfully.
Oh,
but
okay,
I took a
fantastic. I'm so glad you
screenshot.
did that.
I took a screenshot back in the day. So I still have that
That's-
for our memories.
Yes,
Oh, that was smart.
bad.
Yeah.
That was bad. That was smart. That was bad. All right. So we're going to bust 4 myths
Yes.
today. So you guys are going to take the floor. Number 1, all young people are millennials. Bust
So
it.
I'm going to start with this one if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Because especially working in the chamber world, I get to be a part of a lot of different meetings about workforce and education and really planning for the future. And what made this one come up for me, at least, is I noticed that we were using the term millennial as a blanket term for anyone that's young.
Anyone.
Uh-huh.
Someone was referring to high schoolers in a workforce meeting, and they made the comment, well, those millennials in high school. And I'm like, I wanted to lift my hand. I think Jennifer was kicking me under the table because I'm like, no, they're not millennials.
No.
Now, again, and I want to preface, every generation has a reputation
Right.
or, has something that connects them to these different myths, or there's different myths for each generation. But this one I continue to see, even in meetings this week. I guarantee I will hear someone use the term millennial incorrectly. And I'm not saying that to say, oh, you don't know the ages and the date range. No, that's okay. But really, we need to get out of this idea that every young person is a millennial. I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. She'll be in middle school next year. For anybody to think she's a millennial, that's comical to me. And we just can't use that as a blanket term anymore.
Well, and Google said
Yeah.
it. I mean, it told me Generation Z.
Well, and I think personally, Nathan, you might be able to relate to this. Like, then I take it as like we are just the blame for everything
Yep.
bad that young people might do, and so we really have to know that there is another generation that's working its way up
Right.
through the education system and into the workforce.
Right.
And we're in a unique situation. There are several generations in the workforce right now, and each one of them represent different things and bring negative and positive things to the workforce. We're all different, and so young people are not all millennials.
See?
No.
Busted. I should get my hype button.
Yeah.
Da-da-da.
And historically, this has happened in any generation. So the one before it blames them for all the bad things that are going on in the world.
Right.
They think they have no work ethic. All these same things we've heard about millennials. As I've gotten older, trying to connect with someone who might be 19, 20 is a little more challenging. And you see them on TikTok and doing these things like, I'm not on TikTok. That doesn't resonate with me.
Oh, what? You don't watch the girl that sleepwalks and records it?
I like watching them if someone sends me it, but
Yes.
I'm not going to spend hours of my
I
day
agree.
swiping through, which is probably a good thing. I had to delete
know,
it because
I
that was happening.
We were actually going to make that one of the myths, that millennials
Yes.
did not create TikTok.
TikTok.
No.
That was definitely Generation
Should put
Z.
that on there.
Yes.
That
That's
was
funny.
not us.
But anyway, this lady sleepwalks and records it.
I don't think I've
Huh?
seen that one either.
I've heard
Check
about
that
her
out.
on the radio.
Yeah.
So I'm old. I listened
See?
to the radio when I heard about
Is it
TikTok.
like a GoPro or something?
Her husband watches. Yeah, he has to. Anyway, we're getting off
Any-
topic. All right, busted. Number 2, all millennials are the same.
And that's definitely not true.
Yeah.
So anyone, even the three of us sitting here in this room, we're all different. We all have our strengths, our weaknesses, our different beliefs, and that's what makes the world great. So when people start lumping one group of people into the same category as a millennial, like Brittany said, when they just use that as a generic term, that's not really accurate. So as a leader in an organization, you need to know, you have baby boomers potentially that are working for you. You probably have a lot of millennials just because we're the largest workforce in the country now.
80 million.
Yes.
That's what Google said.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
And so there are things that we need to adapt to fit our lifestyles, because within this age group, if you're under 40, you probably have children, you probably own a home. There are different things that are taking up your time, where older generations are past that. So they need to be a little more accommodating to our generation and what's going on in our life. But just to say that every millennial is the same is not true. You being a geriatric millennial, I think I fall into that too. We may act a little differently than those that are younger because we have different work experiences. We've been in the workforce longer.
Right.
So we have those experiences that are helping us kind of shift how we might lead a group of people or how we interact with other people.
And that brings up a good point, because why this one resonated with me is because talking to people, especially about generations in the workforce, or talking to them about young leaders, I have a lot of people that are millennials feel compelled to deny that they're a millennial.
Yeah.
They automatically associate it with a negative thing because of the things that they've heard. It's not their fault, but I get, I'm a millennial, but I'm really a Gen X.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're a millennial, but all millennials aren't the same. And they're in different stages in their lives. I've been in meetings where people say, millennials are entering the workforce. Millennials are sitting next to you.
Right.
Yep.
Millennials are almost 40 years old, if not 40. Everybody's at a different stage. I've been married for a decade. I have a 10-year-old. But then there's some people within young leaders that they're just starting to build their family. I mean, and that's why our programming is the way that it is. We have morning, lunch, and evening programming, because we know that everybody's at a different stage in their personal life and in their careers. And so being able to accommodate those things is important to us. And we can't just assume everybody's the same.
Yep.
And so
And news doesn't help that. Like when you look at headlines, it's millennials are no longer buying houses, they're only renting, or millennials aren't having children. It's like, can't you just say people or like Americans? To just put the label millennials on there, I think is a little unfair.
So I want to bring this up because I want to encourage people to realize that it's okay to be a millennial. It's okay to be it's okay to be in the generation that you fall. You just can't assume that we're all the same and everyone has the same characteristics. We wouldn't be individual people if we all fit that mold in every aspect of our lives.
Amen. Well, and the other important thing about that too is, like, we can all learn from each other.
Absolutely.
And I mean that goes for any generation. And millennials can learn from the generation before them and the generation before them different things, but that is a two-way street.
I have mentors that are millennials with me, mentors that are Gen X, that are baby boomers. Some of my closest friends are Gen X, and I learn from all of them.
Right.
Every person I have in my life, I take the opportunity to learn from.
Yep.
And that's how we should approach that.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, it works both ways. So because there's an understanding of things in a different way, there's certain things that we can teach as well, even as geriatrics.
And there are, it even goes back much further than that. If you Google, like, when people started talking about these generations, it really started with the boomers. Yeah. And they were labeled kind of a negative connotation. You know, if you ask your parents what the boomers were, like, they would probably give you an answer that might be a little negative, or they felt that it was that way. Same thing with millennials, but it really goes back hundreds of years. We've been labeling people in these classifications. So, during the Civil War, that was a very different time, and they were labeled a certain way because they had to learn a set of skills in order to survive. Through the Great Depression. So all of these things, if you really want to do some research about generations, it's interesting to see how each one is because of what they've had to face. Yeah. And we don't know maybe what the millennials have had to face yet. Maybe it's this pandemic. I mean, I think 10 to 20 years from now, it might look a little different than it does today of how we're labeled and how we're described.
I was reading in a book recently, I can't even tell you which one it was, but it was about Generation X, and it called them the forgotten generation. And one part of that I didn't realize, I thought it was for other reasons they were called that. So it's funny how these bits and pieces come up, is the fact that was really the first generation that both parents were working in the household. Right. And so they were getting off the school bus and they were home by themselves, or they were getting themselves on the bus, or whatever it might be. And so each generation has different things, milestones or ways of living that create what that next generation look like.
Oh, that's good. That's so good. That's deep.
That's
deep.
You didn't do that on purpose.
I mean, you really busted that one. If y'all don't believe that millennials aren't the same, then I don't know. Did we bust it fully?
I think we did.
10?
Yeah,
All right.
I think we're good.
Number 3, millennials have no work ethic or loyalty to their employer.
And to me, this is so strange. You know, all of us in Young Leaders, really looking at the group of 300 members, we all work so hard.
Yeah.
You know,
So.
when we have 100 people show up to an event or 50 people show up to an event because they want to learn or they want some leadership skill, like to me, that means they have a drive. And so I don't believe that millennials don't have a work ethic. I think our generation, you know, we have our phones. We love to go through. We love to be on Instagram and Snapchat and all those things. So do I think that we waste some time in our lives? Sure. But I think that's just who we are today. To say that millennials are lazy, I definitely do not see that. When you look at some of the biggest companies in the world, Mark Zuckerberg, he's a millennial. These people that have created something out of nothing. And now they're household names like Facebook that people are saying 1 million times every day around the world.
I will say, I think some people are kind of turning or changing their mind a little bit about this most recently, because I do have a lot of conversations with employers that are, you know, I really need someone young and energetic and someone that can lead this effort. And so I do think that there's this turning tide of saying, you know what, I do want a young millennial that can take this project and turn it into what my vision is, or I need them to be creative for me. And so I do think we're starting to appreciate the difference with a millennial's work ethic than versus maybe someone else's. But the piece is they're passionate.
Well,
Yeah.
They're passionate.
right.
And I don't think anything's wrong with that.
No.
Right.
You know, before I was at the chamber, I was in human resources, which I loved. But at the end, I just wasn't as passionate about it as I wanted to be. And I left that employer on good terms. And now I love coming to work every single day. And so I really think, even personally, I've always prided myself on my work ethic, but I've even seen it where once you're not passionate about something, it's really hard to give it your all. And so I think that's a great attribute of young people, is they want to be passionate, they want to be connected to things.
So I think the word passion can have a negative connotation to the generation before. So we don't want to confuse passion with not working hard.
Absolutely.
Right.
The three of us would argue that we probably work harder than a lot of people before us or our parents. You know, it's not, you don't go to work from 9 to 5 and you check out and you go home.
Yep.
You come and do a podcast in the middle of the afternoon on a Monday, and when you have 73 emails.
Yeah.
You know, you're leading boards, you're leading nonprofit organizations, you're involved in the community. So when we say passion, like, we're working really hard
Absolutely.
to make sure that, you know, the work is done, the community's taken care of, and then we place a huge importance on our family.
Absolutely.
So passion is not related to being lazy or saying, well, I'm just going to do what makes me happy. That's not it.
No.
It's, I'm going to work really
Making an
hard
impact.
Yes.
to make an impact, right, and to be able to pursue the time spent with my family, I think, is important to point out.
I think it's flexibility goes into this, right? Because
Right.
millennials, we want flexibility.
Right.
I
Yep.
will absolutely say that I want that flexibility, because I want to be the best mom that I can be. I
Right.
want to be the best wife I can be, but I also want to be the best employee I can be.
Right.
I want to be the best school board member. And it's hard to do all those things if you don't have flexibility built into your schedule.
Yep.
If I only did the same things from 9 to 5 every day, I couldn't be at those school parties, and I couldn't be dropping something off to my kids in the middle of the day when they needed that, or volunteering, or
Right.
going to Kiwanis like I
Right.
did today.
Right.
And I know you can say the same thing.
Yep.
We care. You said it perfectly. We care about our community too, and having more flexibility allows us to offer our community more of us.
Well,
in a
because we
different
want to
way.
be a part of something that's bigger than us. It's not just
Exactly.
about the work.
But we're willing to do emails at 8 o'clock at
Exactly.
night or
Right.
6 o'clock in the morning. You know, I think our generation is willing to do whatever they want. I think the other piece to this myth is the loyalty factor.
Absolutely.
You know, my first job at Velvet, I was there for almost 10 years. For someone, you know, that started when I was 21, that was huge.
Absolutely.
I didn't know anybody else who was at their job for 10 years. So I think there is a big group of us that has loyalty to people and also to employers. This morning, I was talking to another director at Inglefield about someone leaving. And yes, there has been some turnover, and I think every employer would say that, especially over the past 2 years. There has been a lot of turnover.
Exceptional times.
Yes.
Let's clarify that.
Right.
And we use the term lifer. You know, at Inglefield, we have dozens of people that have been with us more than 30, 40, close to 50 years. So they spent their entire life at one organization. While I feel that I will be there for my rest of my life as a lifer, I don't expect that from anyone on my team. I hope that they will. I hope my coworkers are there forever, but it's kind of an expectation as an employer. You can no longer expect someone to be there for 40, 45 years. You know, if you think about our parents and generations before, there were pensions.
Right.
That kept people employed because they knew that they would be set for their retirement life.
Right.
If they worked in an organization for 30 or 40 years. You know, today we don't have many industries. We have, you know, some education, teachers, you know, firefighters, police officers, but even a lot of those organizations and nonprofits are changing the way that they're doing it because it's not sustainable as from the business side to have a pension for these people that may be alive for 40 years after retirement.
Right.
So things have had to change financially. And I wish that more employers would think that. You know, if we have someone for 2 years and they gave it their all and we got something from them and we were also able to teach them something, that's been mutually beneficial. You know, we hope they're there for 20, but you can't expect that going in, I think, to anyone, regardless of what generation that they're in.
That's good.
I think it goes back to management too. So millennials absolutely do want to be connected to the purpose, to the mission of a company. It doesn't have to be all sunshine and rainbows, what they're doing, but they have to understand what they're doing it for. And so if you're a manager that brings your team along, that you engage them in the right ways and you make sure they feel connected to what you're doing every day, you're going to retain millennials. They're going to be loyal to you. If it is the 9 to 5, you know, stamp the timesheet, just look at the computer, get your job done, have no idea really why you're doing it, you aren't going to retain millennials. That is a fact within the myth.
Right.
But I think that goes back to your workplace culture. It goes back to your management style, all of things that I know at the Chamber we talk about often with our businesses and our employers because that's just a huge important topic when it comes to having the right team members surrounding you.
Right. Amen. Amen. Man, this is so good. This is so good. Like, I didn't expect this to be this good. I mean, not to say that it wouldn't have been.
She's skeptical of us, Nathan.
There's just there's so much content here. Like, this is wonderful stuff. Okay, so we busted number 3, last myth. Millennials do not want to be around older people.
And that's just not true.
No.
I don't know who came up with that. Brittany and I did research when we were creating this presentation many years ago. And that was something that came up, is that these young people had no interest in learning from someone that might be twice their age. And I don't think that that's true. I've never seen that in my life.
Young Leaders doesn't represent that.
No.
So one reason I wanted to talk about this one is because now most people are joking with me. I absolutely know we have one of the main reasons Young Leaders is successful as they are is because of the support of our community. Not just our young people in our community, our entire community, our senior leadership, the people that are building us up and being our mentors have supported us and allowed this group to get where it's at. Actually, I have the opportunity because of the success of Young Leaders, which is not my own. It is Nathan and all of our board members and our members and the chamber and everything. But I get the opportunity to go and talk to other chambers and young professional groups all over Ohio about successful young professional groups because our group is really the model. And one thing I let them know is, 1, their community has to be ready for it, and 2, that they cannot neglect the importance of having buy-in. And we have the buy-in from all the generations in our community. Now, with that being said, I also get those jokes since I facilitate it through the chamber is, oh, Brittany, I'm not allowed in that group, or I'm aging out, you're kicking me out, I'm too old, or you don't want to hear from us old people. And that's so not true.
No.
The reason Young Leaders was created is to provide opportunities for young professionals to connect with people. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the opportunity to. So pancakes with the president and different events that we have, the whole purpose of those is to learn from people outside of our generation or people that have experienced things differently than us.
Right.
So I would say that's quite the opposite. The mentorship, I'll let you talk about that, but the mentorship, that is completely based upon learning from people outside of our generation for the most part.
Yeah.
Well, and I was going to just tail onto that in regards to the mentorship program. But when you do age out, and I'm using that with, I mean, I can still come and hang out with you guys.
Absolutely.
Exactly, yes.
You do not check IDs at the door.
That's right. I mean, I just can't
Unless
be on
you're
the
under
board.
Yes, unless you're under 21.
Yeah. Let me clarify.
Right. Ooh, disclaimer. Where was I? Now we're laughing about being
You
carded.
can still hang out with us, learn from people.
Oh, so I think that the goal is to convert from I was a young leader to being able to be a mentor,
Absolutely.
and speak at these events for young people having had all these experiences as well. I mean, so I think that that's like one of the goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you created this platform for those experiences as well.
Exactly.
So, see,
I think in mentorship,
ding ding.
and also I think back to Pancakes with the President with Dr. Bonnie Coe.
Yep.
This was one of the first ones we had, probably in our first year.
It was, I think.
She was so excited to have a room full of us young people. Like, to embark some wisdom. I remember how poised she was in front of this room talking about her life. As a mother, she has many children and now many grandchildren. And how do you lead an education facility in really hard times and in really good times as a mother, as a grandmother, as someone who's on boards? And I just remember being so impacted. I think we all stood up from that day and were like, wow, we really have created something here, not just for us, but also for those people that are above 40. They want to be connected with us just as much as we want to be connected with them. And I think that's what the mentorship program really does.
Absolutely.
A young person who might be 25 is working with maybe a CEO that might be 55 or 60. They probably have children that are the same age, but they get to connect on this professional level and they get to learn from each person so in depth that it's like it's a mother, daughter, father, son kind of relationship for these 6 months, because you're getting access to information that otherwise no one would ever have. And I think
a lot of these pairings have continued, right?
They have, yeah.
That's what I thought. Even past the 6 months, they have continued to meet up. They've went golfing together, had
Yes.
dinner together. So I
and we
really love
want
that part.
we want that. Everyone who joins a mentorship program or young leaders has a goal in mind. Some have a small business, they want to network. That's great. We have others who are too afraid to make a leap into a new job and they need help with that. Or they want to meet new people because they want to kind of switch careers. And so really whatever your benefit that you want is, if you just want a friend, if you're new to the community and you want to meet someone, like we said, just come to an event. And I think we have something that everyone will be able to find for them.
Well, I think
Professional development, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
But
no.
we have a lot of people that I only see them at the professional development events,
Yep.
or I only see them at the opportunities to volunteer with local nonprofits. I mean, there's something for everyone. And then there's others that really take advantage of as much of it as they possibly can.
Well, it's just a great opportunity to learn different leadership.
Yeah.
To be around and exposed to different leadership. I mean, I know I've been in this industry for it's 20 years next month, you guys.
Good for you.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. And within the industry though, I've been able to learn from different people in different places in different ways. It doesn't always have to be one way, but so this is a great opportunity just to learn about yourself and what kind of leader that you want to eventually be, and having that exposure is so important because we don't often get that.
No.
So
Absolutely. And I can say personally, I don't know if you can say this, Nathan, even the personal growth that I've experienced, even though I have the blessing of this being a part of my day job too. Yes, it's volunteer piece, but it's a part of what I do day to day is help with young leaders. And so it has personally allowed me to grow so much through the experiences that we've provided, that I might be the one sitting in the back of the room,
Right.
Doing registration, but I'm listening, I'm learning,
Yeah.
and the people that I've been able to meet and connect with through this, and so I hope other people receive just as much value
Yeah.
and gain from it.
Well, I think too, it's important for young people to understand that being humbled is not a bad thing.
No.
Nope. And that's something really hard to learn.
Yeah.
And I think everyone has to learn that.
Yes.
It's not just millennials, it's
It's
every generation.
everyone.
Every young person has to learn to be humbled.
Yes.
We all do it. We all have to.
Absolutely. And so there's opportunity for that too. I mean, that's life. But I mean, I think it does give us an opportunity to learn how to take humility and to make it a positive thing and something to learn from. And the word failure isn't the most scary word that you'll ever come to understand.
I think every CEO or president that spoke at Pancakes with the President has a different message for us and different experiences to share, but they all route back to exactly what you said. That failure is not the end. Failure is not something that we all can avoid. It's not something we should try to avoid. It's something we learn from. We should embrace when we have to. And that's been a common theme, I think, through every presentation we've had.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of these other generations, we've gotten the feedback, they don't know how they got to the CEO position. It just kind of happened. And that's been really good reflection, I think, for them, because obviously there was a progression of events that led them to, the top position in their organization. But when they look back, they were just a normal person that was afraid to talk to people, that was afraid to public speak. Exactly. They don't come onto a podcast and just feel natural at it. They've had to work at each of these things. And I think that's what we're really getting from these other generations that's helping us millennials become the best leaders that we can is working with them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I had a whole bunch of other questions, but I'm going to skip them all because we pretty much dug into all of that stuff. But, I will say that, I think that there is a stereotype that we want to be validated constantly. And for me, validation is great, right? But when you constantly have to try to prove yourself out of these myths, it does help to have some sort of validation.
Yep.
And so I think that's really where that basis lies on, because millennials have had to really prove themselves based on these stereotypes or these myths. But I would like to get your opinion on that idea. But where does technology and social media play into that kind of belief? Does that make sense what I'm asking you?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's been interesting. I remember when Facebook came out, really the first social media, and you had to be in college.
Oh, no, I had MySpace.
Well, MySpace, Zanga, all those fun ones.
Ooh, yeah.
But Facebook was the first big one. You had to be, and they started kind of
I will argue that, Nathan. MySpace was cool. You had your own
It's
theme
still
song.
around. It's still around.
Is it?
Your
Is it
friend,
still around?
It is.
Oh, goodness.
I don't know that you can still have a profile, but it's still around.
Do you know if people
Tom,
look
was that the
them up?
name?
Yeah.
Tom was your first friend on MySpace?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, off topic again. Back to social media.
Well, Facebook started with you had to be a college student only. And so I remember when I was a freshman at Ohio State, this thing came out and we got to join, and there was no one else, like no one younger than you. So anyone that you knew still in high school couldn't join.
Right.
Your parents weren't on there. And so I think it's interesting today how Facebook is probably more for people that are not millennial, older generations, parents and grandparents. We have Instagram that I think is kind of the millennial powerhouse of a social media. Snapchat, I remember when that came out, I'm like, what is the use for Snapchat? But now I use it 100 times a day. And now we have TikTok and that's how I know I'm getting older.
Twitter. That's what I need to
know. I don't think anyone uses Twitter.
I cannot get on board. I'm sorry, Twitter.
I don't like Twitter either.
Okay.
I don't
Just
know anything
I was
else.
curious if I needed to put it
I forgot
in some
about
type
that.
of generational
Yeah.
bucket. Okay.
But I think technology has changed so quickly.
It has.
And our generation is really unique. Most of us grew up no cell phone. I remember when I got my cell phone in, I think I was 16. I just started to drive. It was a flip phone.
I had a pager.
Oh, you were
pager.
fancy.
Oh, yeah. And we
What
would
did you call her
speak
again?
in numbers.
Jerry.
You get different color cases for it. You had to ask your parents to buy that for you.
Yes. Well, I remember texting someone, you had to push, like 777 to get to the right letter. And I'm like, why would you text anyone? You just pick up the phone. That's so faster. And today, no one likes to talk on the phone. We're all texting each
I had
other.
to send my goodnight messages to everybody, and then you had to have a call number so you knew 588 was LUV.
Oh.
Night, like 44 NIT 6
Yeah, I
/588
did not do
slash
the pager thing.
21 is my number. So. Anyway, I'm sorry. We could do this all day.
Yeah. But technology has just changed so much. Like, your girls basically knew technology from when they were born.
Absolutely.
My nephew, I feel like when he was 1 year old, he knew how to like take our phone and navigate it. It's just really interesting to see how things will change as they become 35 years old.
Right.
What is the world going to be like?
I'm scared.
And it's good. Technology has provided a lot of good, but it's also, as I get older, I like to read a magazine. I could read it on my phone. It's probably cheaper for me to subscribe on my phone, but having something physical in my hands. I know you like to have a physical book in your hand. And I think as millennials start becoming a little bit older, we're going to have some of that older generation come out in us that every generation has had.
Well,
And it's just slower for us because we've been so young, and now we're getting to that point
Well, and
in
you
our life.
learn from your parents.
You do.
I mean, you take some of those things, regardless of how bad you fight them
Yes.
sometimes.
And how many times we're like, oh my gosh, I sound just like my
my
dad
dad.
or your mom. You're like, oh God.
I actually saw this image, and it was people sitting around a dinner table and people with phones in their faces not paying attention to their kids. And then there was an image of a group doing that with newspapers in their faces. And so it's not really how that's changed, or it's changed, but it's always been that way. We always have distractions in our lives. Now, do I think that there's some things that come with technology that it's constant, it's always at your fingertips? Do I think that it creates some negative things, like always comparing yourself one to one another? I do think, and I don't think this is just millennial generation, I think it's anybody that's heavily using social media. I think that there's this level of competition, and I think competition is healthy. But I think social media sometimes takes it over the edge. Instead of being great partners to one another, they make you want to compete and be better than, and really the only person you need to be better than is yourself. You need to continue to work on yourself personally and not constantly competing with your friends and your colleagues. It shouldn't be about that constantly. And so I do think social media has some negative pieces to it, and I won't get into my school board connotation about what it's doing to kids emotionally, but I definitely think it has some negatives, but it also has some positives. I think it allows us to all stay so connected, to know what's happening in the community. I know my great aunts that are in their 70s, that's how they know what's going on with my kids. Of course, I call them and we go visit them, but in between, that's how they stay connected. So I think it's like anything. It has its positives, it has its negatives, and there has to be a limitation put to it.
A boundary.
Boundaries, absolutely.
Yeah. Which is a whole other Oprah show that's kind of hard for our generation. It's boundaries.
Yes.
We'll talk about that another time. So before we wrap up, talk to us about what books and what podcasts that the young leaders are listening to and reading right now.
They're all a little different.
Okay.
So with Young Leaders TV, which is kind of what came out of the pandemic. So we have a bi-monthly television program that's posted on our Facebook and all of our social media and also emailed out. It's been interesting to see what are people listening to and what are they reading. Some of them are what you would expect. You know, the big names in leadership or big names in leading businesses. And then we've had others that have been really specific. And those are the ones I really like to hear from. A
lot of Brene Brown fans.
Yeah.
Dare to Lead.
And those are good ones.
Absolutely.
And those are really good ones. It's interesting. More people have actually recommended a book than they had podcast. And I thought that might be. I guess if it was about murder mystery, we'd probably have a dozen different podcasts that are being recommended. But it was interesting because I feel like a lot of people in our generation in their car, like on the way over here, I was listening to a podcast. And,
what podcast?
well, you know me.
And I've finance, I know.
It was, yes.
Finance.
Me being a big nerd, I was listening to the Dave Ramsey podcast on the way over here.
I'm a nerd too, man.
That's
it's
good.
Cool. Nerds are cool.
They are.
Really. So.
So I feel like we need, maybe as young leaders, we need to share these a little bit more too. But it's the question that comes up with every event that we have where Pancakes with the President or any of those professional development, there's always a question, what is your favorite book or what are you reading right now? And
there's always some good ones in there. I mean, ones that we haven't even heard of, or also the ones that you always hear that must, have something to it. So you need to make sure they're on your reading list. Women's Leadership Network's the same thing. That's one of the most popular questions when we have programming.
And David Troutman has a printed list, and we have gotten that a couple of times. CEO of Park National Bank. he talks so much about reading and how that has helped him become a leader. Like, he will give his printed list of books that he recommends to his leaders at Park National Bank to read. And we've had so many inquiries from that, and people are interested. But it's not things that you would expect. He's had the Bible on there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if many people would say that that is a leadership book. But once you read it, it is the leadership book. But if you would look at a top 10 list, that's not going to be on there.
Right. You're exactly
and so he thinks of these things that you're going to learn something from it that may not be the typical, as a leader, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really powerful for our group.
Well, I will encourage anybody that's interested in some of these books to reach out to you guys, the young leaders. Do you have a contact page on the website?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
we do.
So go to the contact page, reach out about any books that you might, or topics that you might be thinking of, and they'll let you know.
Yes.
Right? So one more time, give us a shout out, the website address, and then you guys are on Facebook too.
Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. So just Young Leaders of Licking County.
Young Leaders of LC.
Young Leaders of LC. Mm-hmm. Abbreviation is YLLC.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And the website one more time?
Is youngleadersoflc.com.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
So
if you go to the chamber page, you can get directed to it anytime as well.
And I obviously want to thank you guys for being here today, but I just want to say that anytime that I get together with you guys, I so much enjoy our conversation. Your leadership is profound. So if anybody's willing to learn something, these two are really great avenues for you to get started if you're interested in that. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here and sharing all of that with us today. And please join us next month. We have a fantastic lineup for this year. We're super excited to bring you some new things and get started. So until next month, you guys, stay safe.